Shadows in the basement. Alex Hayes stood on the overgrown driveway, staring at the crumbling facade of his estranged uncle's house. The estate attorney's words still echoed in his mind. "You're the only living heir, Mr. Hayes. The property is yours now." The house had been built in the late 1800s, and time had not been kind to it. Ivy clawed at the walls, and the windows gazed back like dark, hollow eyes. Alex gripped the key in his pocket tightly, the cold metal grounding him as an unsettling breeze rustled through the barren trees. He didn't want to be here. The memories of his uncle, Ray, a reclusive and enigmatic figure, stirred a mix of unease and curiosity. Growing up, Uncle Ray's sporadic visits always left a mark on Alex, a whisper of a warning, a look of knowing dread. Now, Ray was gone, and his secrets were left behind, locked inside this dilapidated house. The air inside the house was heavy, carrying the faint staleness of abandonment. Dust coated every surface, and the boards beneath Alex's feet creaked with each step. The house smelled of decay, but it wasn't just rot. It was something deeper, an undercurrent of unease that seeped into Alex's bones. He wandered through the rooms, finding little more than forgotten furniture and scattered personal effects. Then, in the study, he found a journal. The worn leather cover was cracked, the pages yellowed and brittle. Inside, Uncle Ray's spidery handwriting filled the margins with ominous warnings. "Do not open the basement. Shadows are not what they seem. They feed on fear." Alex frowned, flipping further into the journal. Sketches of strange symbols, notes about rituals, and fragmented sentences filled the pages. Words like containment and binding circle were scrawled in red ink, underlined several times. The basement door was locked, as expected, but Alex's curiosity gnawed at him. His uncle's cryptic warnings felt like a challenge, and his hands itched to uncover the truth. With a twist of the key, the lock gave a sharp, brittle snap, and the door creaked open, spilling shadows into the room. Beyond, a staircase spiraled down into an abyss, the air thick with the stench of damp earth and something faintly metallic, like blood left too long in the sun. Alex froze, Uncle Ray's cryptic warnings echoing in his mind like distant thunder, but the sinister allure of the unknown gripped him tighter, dragging him forward. At the bottom of the stairs, his flashlight sliced through the suffocating darkness, casting wavering shadows on the damp walls. The beam settled on a large, circular symbol, carved deeply into the floor, its lines crude yet deliberate. At its center sat a grotesque black mass of flesh, still and alien, its surface slick and glinting under the light. The air down here was colder, icy, oppressive, and stifling, coiling around him like a predator. Every inch of the room seemed to hum with a dreadful anticipation, as though it were a sentient thing, holding its breath, waiting for him to make the first move. In the corner of the room, perched on a rickety table, Alex's gaze caught a wooden chest. He hesitated before lifting the lid, revealing an unsettling collection within. Aged candles, a tarnished dagger, and several vials filled with a dark, viscous liquid that seemed to swirl unnaturally under the light. As his trembling hand sifted through the items, one of the vials tipped over, shattering on the cold stone floor. The liquid spread quickly, winding its way into the deep grooves of the etched circle. A faint, eerie glow began to seep from the symbol, pulsing with an unnatural life, and the room seemed to shudder in response, as if it had been waiting for this moment. A sudden chill swept through the room, seeping into Alex's bones. The faint glow of the circle flickered erratically, casting long, jagged shadows. At its center, the black mass began to pulse, grotesquely expanding and contracting as it absorbed the spilled liquid, its surface glistening with an unnatural sheen. Alex's breath hitched as his eyes darted to the walls. The shadows writhed and twisted unnaturally, no longer tethered to his flashlight's beam. They slithered along the stone like sentient creatures, stretching toward him, alive with malevolent intent. The shadows began to take shape, forming humanoid figures with distorted features. Their movements mirrored his own at first, jerky and fragmented, but as the moments passed, they grew smoother, more deliberate. One stepped closer, its face a dark void where a mouth and eyes should have been. Alex stumbled back, his flashlight shaking. "What the hell?" he whispered. The shadows didn't answer. They didn't need to. Their intent was clear. Alex dashed up the stairs, his legs trembling, as he slammed the study door shut behind him. His fingers fumbled over the lock before he dragged a chair and a heavy side table in front of it, the scraping sound like nails on a chalkboard. Backing away, he nearly tripped over the edge of the rug, his eyes locking onto the journal lying open on the desk. With trembling hands, he grabbed it, his gaze darting desperately across Uncle Ray's chaotic notes. "They mimic you. The more you fear, the stronger they become." The scrawled warning leapt off the page, sending a cold shiver racing down Alex's spine. A deep, resonant thud echoed from the basement. His breath caught, his heartbeat pounding like a war drum in his ears. Another thud followed, louder this time, reverberating through the floorboards. Then came the scraping, the unmistakable sound of nails dragging against wood. Alex turned toward the basement door, his stomach twisting into knots. The cold air in the study seemed to thicken, pressing against him as the dreadful truth settled in. The shadows were trying to get out. Alex peered out the window, only to find it shrouded in impenetrable blackness. The world outside was gone, swallowed whole by the void. Panic rising, he bolted to the front door, yanking desperately at the handle. It didn't budge. The door groaned under his attempts, but it was as if it had fused with the frame. Heart pounding, he threw his shoulder against it again and again, only to stumble back in defeat. Refusing to give up, he sprinted through the house, his frantic steps echoing in the suffocating silence. He clawed at the windows, battered the back door, but every escape was sealed tight, the walls themselves seeming to mock his efforts. Exhausted and trembling, Alex found himself back in the study, the one place that still offered a semblance of light. Collapsing at the desk, his shaking hands flipped through the journal, desperate for answers. The brittle pages offered fragments of hope, a ritual incomplete but tantalizingly close to salvation. The note spoke of a salt protection ring and a dagger to pierce the heart of the black mass, but scrawled beneath the instructions, as if an afterthought, came the ominous warning. The ritual demanded a steep price. Alex's breath caught as he read the final words, his stomach knotting with dread. To succeed, he would have to confront his greatest fear. He didn't need to think twice. He knew exactly what that was. Alex left the study and hurried to the kitchen, his footsteps echoing in the oppressive silence. He tore through the cupboards with frantic hands, finally unearthing a dusty bag of table salt. Clutching it tightly, he turned back toward the study. But the hallway seemed darker now, the shadows deeper and alive, creeping toward him. Panic surged in his chest and he sprinted back, slamming the study door behind him. His breath came in short gasps as he realized the dagger was still in the basement. The silence pressed heavy on his ears, unnerving in its stillness. Swallowing his fear, Alex shoved the furniture aside, unlocked the door, and descended once more into the darkness, armed with the journal and salt. The basement greeted him with an unnatural stillness. No whispers, no laughter, only the echo of his own footsteps. He retrieved the dagger from the chest, then set to work, pouring the salt into a precise circle on the floor. His shaking hand spilled granules, but he pressed on, his voice faltering as he recited the Latin incantation scrawled in the journal. Then they appeared. Shadows gathered at the stairway, their twisted forms crawling down like living nightmares. Alex's voice trembled, and the shadows responded with laughter, a guttural, mocking sound that vibrated in his skull. They began to echo his words, twisting them into cruel parodies. One shadow stepped forward, its hollow face inches from Alex's. Its empty gaze consumed him, showing flashes of his past, his parents screaming at each other, nights spent trembling under his bed, and the cold, haunting memory of his mother's lifeless body. The vision shattered his resolve. Tears streaked down Alex's face as he struggled to continue the incantation. His hands shook violently, breaking the salt circle. The shadows surged forward, their cold, claw-like forms clawing at his skin and dragging him down into suffocating darkness. No! Alex's scream was raw, primal. You don't control me. With a surge of defiance, he stepped out of the broken circle, dagger in hand. The shadows faltered, their laughter silenced by his newfound resolve. Alex raised the blade high and drove it into the floor, piercing the black heart at the center of the glowing symbol. Light erupted from the floor, blinding and all-consuming. A deafening roar filled the air as the shadows writhed in agony, their forms unraveling like smoke in a hurricane. One by one, they dissolved, their screams fading into silence. When Alex opened his eyes, he was alone. The oppressive atmosphere was gone, replaced by an eerie stillness. The journal lay at his feet, its pages now blank, as though its purpose had been fulfilled. He left the house that night, locking the door and hurling the key into the woods. He didn't look back, but as he drove away, a shadow flickered in his rearview mirror, a reminder that some fears never truly vanish. Want to keep the shadows happy? Hit that like button before they come looking for you. Subscribe for more terrifying tales, and drop a comment with your thoughts or even your scariest experience. Who knows? It could inspire the next video.